Did you guys, has anybody used anything we've taught you whatsoever so far in L3, or has nothing ever been implemented ever? Who here has used anything that we've taught them?
I hope some hands go up.
I know, I'm looking for hands. Oh, open house. Dana, you're the best. Open house. Who else has used anything? Have you guys used any of the, what did we do? What have we done so far, Lena? Buyer consult?
I know Sam Mountain has used the script with the open house stuff. The LP Mama,
Kelsey, isn't LP Mama, like, it's like your life. Like LP Mama is something, it's just how you start thinking, you know? Are you already starting to, yeah, you're already starting to feel that. I love that. What else are you guys using?
What about, I want to know if anybody did a buyer consult with buyers in the last 2 weeks.
Have any of you guys written an offer on behalf of a buyer and, you know, gone into multiple offers? Have you guys been through that? Jesse, how did you do? Did Robin, I'm seeing Robin and Jesse, sorry if I'm not seeing you and you're raising your hand. Did this help? Did you use anything? Do you want to share anything with anyone about that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess both the like winning offers that I had like in multiple offer situations recently, I was lucky enough to be opposite a listing agent that was communicative. So it was just, you know, like positive communication. Hey, where are we at? Are we still in the lead? Blah, blah, blah. What kind of terms do you want to see? So the last one, we ended up beating the competing offer by just $1,000.
That's great. That's really great. How did you do in preparing your client to do what it took to win that?
Well, this client I'd been on a rather long journey with, and finally I just told her, you know, you're kind of making some half-ass offers on stuff that maybe isn't the best for you anyway. Like your heart's not in it, but like you love this one, let's fight hard for it, you know? So it's just kind of like coaching.
Yeah, that's really what it is like. Yeah, I love that. Dane, that's awesome. Where are you? Dane. Will you say something, Dane?
Hello.
There you are.
Can you find me?
So Dane, have you submitted an offer yet?
No, we're looking, but we're gonna go look at something today that they're very interested in. So hopefully this evening we'll be putting something together.
Cool, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Did the buyer consult training help?
Yeah. I didn't have to do much to convince them. They found me. It's a musician friend of mine that I've worked with for years, and he's finally in a position where he thinks that they can buy something. So we're gonna try, see what happens.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I love it. You know, when you guys email us, text us, you know, share things with us, because it helps course correct us. It helps guide us when we know what jumps out at you. Like, thank you for sharing LP Mama. Thank you for sharing the open house training. Cause that's like, okay, that's affirmation. We need to keep teaching that and just kind of keep drilling down on that. So, Sean, are you here? Is Sean here?
Yeah.
Where'd you go? Sean, I just want to shout out Sean Brown here. Let me spotlight you really quick, because I can't thank you enough for doing what you do. You know, you're so good about giving us the email updates and, hey guys, I wanted to let you know, this is what I've implemented. This is what I'm you know, you're just really good at sharing, like, this funny thing happened to me on the way to the open house. And, you know, it's appreciative because it helps us, you know, kind of move forward with content. So thank you for doing that. And, you know, I'd just like to encourage all of you guys to do it.
Thank you.
So today we're going to go over CMAs, and CMAs are one of those things that when I started in real estate back in the dark ages when we had horse and carriages, when I started in real estate, I know, so old. No one taught me how to do a CMA. Lena, I don't know. Did anyone teach you how to do a CMA?
No.
Blake, we've got Blake Rehbein here. He's going to go over some stuff with us. Blake's an appraiser. Blake, but going back to your real estate days, did anyone teach you how to do a CMA?
Yes, but because I'm very persistent and bothered someone until they showed me.
So how I learned to do CMAs, was the office I was in at the time when I first got into real estate now everyone's got laptops, so it's hard to imagine, but we used to have rooms that had computers in them. And, most of us didn't have laptops, again, dark ages. So they would have computer resource rooms, with like 8 computers in them. And that's where everyone would do their work, or a lot of us would do our work. It was almost like a luxury to have your own computer in your own office. I'm sounding really old right now. And there you go. And so I would literally go hang out in the resource room. You know the cat gif where the cat's like doing the typing, I would act like I'm typing. And really what I was doing is I was kind of like looking over shoulders and trying to like eavesdrop on everybody doing their CMAs. So one of the top agents in the office was in there doing a CMA, and her name was Sally. And I go, "Hey, Sally, can I just look over your shoulder while you're doing that? Because no one's ever taught me to do this." And she said, "Yeah." And just naturally, humans are naturally want to help other people. And she just started walking me through how she did it. And then I did it with someone named Anne. And then I did it with Bev, a gal named Bev. And so, I just kind of started noticing that everyone did them slightly differently. And then I started thinking, well, appraisers have rules, which Blake's going to go over in a bit, but we don't have rules. We can do whatever we want as long as we're kind of arriving at value consistently every time, as long as I have a method. So the method that I how I've always done CMAs from, the beginning of the dark ages when I started is, and this is my term, but I've always done what I call a layered approach, where I do a series of different types of searches, and I dump everything in the cart in the MLS, and I'm gonna walk you through. I'm gonna do a real one for you right now. And sometimes it's a map search, sometimes it's an area search. I have some rules that I'm gonna go over, how kind of whatever, and it's a very broad sweep. So the method is layered search is just a bunch of different ways I'm searching, very broad, like, okay, this looks maybe like it might be good. I'm gonna dump it in the cart. And then where I spend my time, so I'm just like clocking through that. And then where I spend my time is in my cart. Once I've sifted through 2 or 3 different searches and I'm dumping them in my cart, and we'll talk about it in a second, what those parameters are, then I'm really deep diving. Now I'm in the cart, I'm looking at pictures, I might be texting agents. I'm really doing a deep dive now. And we're gonna just kind of walk through that. And then me arriving at value. Lena or Hattie, could you guys mute everybody? I can't quite see everyone. How I arrive at value is, it always is the same with me. It's 1 comp, maybe 2. It always ends up to basically comparing it to another house, and then another 1 or 2 might get peppered in there, right? Kind of depending on the situation. And I just have developed over the last 19 years of doing this, I've just developed a whole bunch of rules, and I'm just going to share what I do. My caveat is everybody's brain works really differently. And I really don't think there is a right way to do CMAs. I actually don't think my way is necessarily the right way. I'm going to go into one method I use when I'm struggling. And my comment about that method is that I don't do it every time. I've taught it before, but I do think it's really good for me to show you what I'm doing, because it's kind of a good go-to tool in your tool belt when you're struggling with one, right? So I am going to show you that method, but you don't have to do that method with every house. Sound good? Any questions before I kind of share my screen and dive in? Okay, so I'm going to do that. I remember earlier in my career, I went to a panel of 3 appraisers. Master Builders Association put it on. And it was one of the most beneficial things I've ever attended in real estate, because those appraisers went through what their rules were and how the box that they're in and how they price homes. And number 1, I got a lot out of it for my own rules and how I price. But number 2, I became very aware of what I was going to be up against for appraisals, So I asked Blake to come on. Blake is in our Everett office. Say hi, Blake.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thank you for coming today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Blake is an appraiser. He's basically a full-time appraiser and a part-time real estate agent. Is that fair, Blake?
Yes, that's accurate.
And I coach Blake, so I basically made him come It's just what happens when I coach you. You'll end up on screen at some point. And right, Lena? One day there's Lena and Via's L3. She's like, yes, very much so. So I asked Blake to come on for 15 or 20 minutes to walk us through some of those rules. I think it's really good for you guys to see what appraisers' rules are. So stay on for that. That's really, really useful information. You don't have to use what Blake does, but A, you can, and B, you can understand, you know, when you're giving a package to an appraiser, when you have a listing or when you're a buyer and you want something to, you know, hit the appraisal. It's really useful information. If we have time, and I'm hoping we do, the last segment, I really want to walk through how I present this to the sellers and buyers, because by the way, you guys, we do CMAs for buyers too, right? So, but I really want to go over how I present it to sellers, because it's one thing to do it. I have some really good scripts and approaches to how I present pricing that doesn't lose me the listing if my price disagrees with them. So it's just going to depend on how active you guys are, how deep you want me to go. So we'll have time for all three of those segments. Unless we just want to go down rabbit holes and go deeper, and I'm fine to do that. I really am on the first two segments. So it's kind of your call. Sound good? Okay. As always, Lena is going to monitor chat, interrupt me because I'm not going to really look at chat. So I just kind of want to focus on this. So she's going to interrupt me. You guys definitely, oh my gosh, you feel free to unmute and be super interactive if you want. Okay. All right. So the first thing I do is I determine my subject property. Sorry, you know this darn MLS, you have to log in every single time.
I know. Times you out all the time.
Remember back in the day, there was little dots and you just can click log me in. Doesn't happen anymore. Okay, so the first thing I do when I get, a subject property, I get a lead, I get a referral, whatever I'm doing, is I pull two things if I have them, or one thing. And that is I pull the realist from the MLS and I pull the former listing. I much prefer a former listing. So if the property has been on the market in the last, 15 or 20 years, it'll probably be on the MLS. And it's just, that's way better information. You get so much information on that, right? So I kind of scour that. I'm looking for square footage, bedroom count. If it's a former listing, I'm looking for marketing remarks. I'm looking for everything, every data point I can get on that. Okay, so that's the first thing. It's just my first, one of you guys says, Via, I'm in Bellingham and I don't sell houses in Kirkland. Can you list a house for me? Yes, or here's a referral. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go right in and I'm gonna get on the MLS and I'm gonna search the address on the MLS, pull the old listing, print it to PDF, and I'm gonna go right into Realist and look it up there, print it to PDF, like literally in 30 seconds, right? It's just like a thing. So that's the first thing. The second thing, usually with those in front of me, even if they're not in front of me, the second thing is I'm gonna go right into my pre-qual. So, hey Blake, so that's awesome. I can't wait to meet with you on Sunday. 3 o'clock would be great. Question for you. I've got the tax records in front of me, and and it looks like you're at about 3,350 square feet, 11,700 square foot lot. Homes built in 1966. I know you said it was totally remodeled, 4 bedroom, 3 bath. Does that sound about right, Blake, or is that off on square footage because of the remodel?
Yeah, no, that sounds accurate. It's the same building footprint.
Okay, perfect. So Blake, can you kind of walk me through the remodel? So that what I really want to go into, right, is I want to go into any additional square footage. Okay, number one. Number two, I want to go into surfaces. So just write down surfaces. I want to know what's in the bathrooms and the kitchens, guys. And the floors, floors, bathrooms, surfaces. So once I kind of understand the layout, I can kind of tell by year built, like 1966 year built, this particular house we're going to do a CMA on, it was turned into an open floor plan, and she had shared that with me. And they had added square footage, right? So they've added square footage. So then my next question is perfect. Have you had an appraisal? Did you do construction financing? Have you had it refinanced? Or I can see that they have. And then I just ask them to dig up an appraisal, not then and there, but just give me an approximate square footage so that I can come with preliminary pricing. But I'm going to need to see some official document with an increased square footage in order to publish that on the MLS, right? I'm like, don't worry about it right now, but if you can get that ready for me when we meet, that would be great. Or if you can shoot it to me on email, that would be great. Almost always people email it to me. Okay, so I'm getting data, I'm getting facts, I'm doing pre-qualifying questions. You know, can you describe the house to me? What have you done to it? I want to know about the surfaces. I want to know if there's any added square footage. I always want to know what's awesome about the house. What do people say about your house? What made you buy the house? Why do you love it so much? And that's when you find out the things that are intangible, like, well, the whole back of the house is south facing, which makes it awesome because it's super light and bright, and a lot of my neighborhood's really dark. Oh, that's great. Or we're in a cul-de-sac. It's an awesome cul-de-sac. Everybody wants our cul-de-sac. My deceased wife was an artist, so we have this huge artist loft upstairs, which would be a great playroom, but because of that, it has amazing light and cork floors, and it's super cool, and it's like lofty. And, you know, these are the things that you're like, oh, and you can start visualizing the house. So that leading into this is the information that I'm assuming I have, okay? All right. Now I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, so we've got that information. In fact, here, let me show you. Let me show you actually. This is the actual house we're gonna do this on. So let me start with the realist. So this is a house, this is a listing I'm bringing on. Oh, am I gonna get in trouble for this?
Coming soon.
No, oh, shit. Okay, this is just a house we're using for the purpose of this class that I've been to. I've been to this house, okay. So that is a VFL. This is just a house, that's all this is, okay. Okay, so this is in Bellevue, you know, square footage, bedrooms, lot size, you know, whatever. You know, the AVM, the automated value that, you know, they're giving, and I automatically know these days, I know it's probably 1.3 to 1.6. It's probably 1.4 to 1.6, because I mean, it's always at the top of these, right? I can look down and, you know, kind of get some stats like, you know, the last time they refinanced it is in 2014. They've owned this house, you know, they've just owned it a long time. So this gives me a lot of data. This shows me, you know, it's a really great lot. You can see this cul-de-sac here. I can look at the cul-de-sac. So this gives me a lot of data. So I have all this data. I did the pre-interview. Now I'm going to go to the MLS. Okay. So now I have all that data. So I'm going to go to search. Okay. And I'm going to go to general. And we're going to record this, by the way. So, you know, now this is just me. So I go to remember there's no right or wrong. This is just how I do it. So I copy and paste my realist address. I go to map search. This is the first thing I do. Literally, this is all happening within 60 seconds. Like, it's so fast. And I just want to go straight down to this house on the map. There's no other criteria, right? Sorry, the Zoom's getting in my way here. Okay, there we go. So, you know, I'm like, this is just the first thing I do. I'm like, okay, all right, you know, I kind of know this area, cool, great. And the first thing I want to do is I kind of want to set, I call them my lines of demarcation, but like, what's the true neighborhood here? You know, like I really, how far can I go before the value starts getting skewed? And I really think Bellred and Northup are two really good borders in this case. And I also know the area. And I know once you start getting close to Lake Sammamish, it kind of starts getting into views in a different price point, and we're not there, right? So I kind of start drawing my polygon accordingly. And I'm a little more generous nowadays because we just don't have a lot of, you know, inventory, right? Northup way, okay. So that's the first thing I'm doing. I'm like, all right, what do we have going on here, right? And, you know, I'm looking at criteria. The only thing I really care, I mean, I don't want condos. I don't want townhomes. This is $1 million plus home. We don't need to see that stuff right now, right? I don't need a lot of parameters other than I really don't want a split entry because that's kind of a different thing. By the way, if you have a split level home, try your best to only compare them against other split level homes. That's one of my rules, right? I'm just going to think of rules as I get them. That's one of them. One level Rambler homes. For the most part, I really only want you to use a Rambler against a Rambler. One level. Now, the exception is 1.5 stories. This house is a good example of that. You could live on the main level. There's a bonus room, a bedroom, and a bathroom upstairs, but this one can compare, this can comp against one levels for me. But I'm pretty purposeful about that. If I've got, because the price per square foot on a Rambler is going to be a higher price per square foot than on any other level. Here's a little rule of thumb I use. Blake can, this is just a VIA rule. Blake, you can contradict it all you want. Your prime square footage is your ground level square footage, price per square foot. When we go sub in the basement, it's lower than that. When we even go on a second floor, it's lower than that. So our price per square foot total is really a blended average of what the price per square foot is on the main level and the lower and the higher. If you really want to get technical, which I never do ever want to get technical, then I would do like 50% ground level square footage for the basement, 50% for the second floor, 75%. I never ever want to do that. It's not how my brain works. But, when it comes to a one level home, for the most part, that's going to be a way higher price per square foot than the same square footage home on, say, 3 levels. So the footprint matters. The footprint matters. So I've had sellers who've really pushed back on price before. I remember I had a $3 million listing once, and it was in Yarrow Point. It was on 3 levels, and they kept trying to send me these comps of these 1 levels and like, look at their price per square foot. And I'm like, we will never be that price per square foot. We are stacked. Our footprint's way smaller. That's a huge, massive footprint. Does that make sense? That makes sense? Okay. So I don't know. I don't want to overload you with info, and I don't even necessarily, I just want to plant some seeds. So in this case, it's basically a 1 level with like a half level on top. I don't want a split entry. That's going to really skew me. I really don't want a townhouse. So I'm just going to say not on those. And, I can play around with 3, 4, 5 bedrooms, but I really don't need to mess around with anything under 3. So I'm not going to get too strict on my parameters right now. And I'm just going to search it. You guys can just break in if you have questions. This is just me doing what I do, right? So Ben Kinney, first listing that comes, that is unbelievable. I could not have planned that. That literally a Ben Kinney, Keller Williams Everett listing comes up. Pretty beautiful, huh? So this one comes up and it's overpriced because anything on the market for 48 days in this area, that's too funny. That's funny. One of you will text him within 30 seconds and I will probably get a text. That's what usually happens. All right. So we start looking through these houses. Now I've been to this house, and so I'm just going to do a super quick skim right now. This one, our house is 3350 square feet. All right, here's what I'm going to do, guys, because this is too big of a variance. I am going to put some square foot parameters. So 3,300 square feet, I'm going to be pretty broad. I'm going to do 2,700 to say 3,800. Okay. That got me down to 8. That might be a little too low, but okay. I can already tell this one, Redmond is going to be different. I'm in Bellevue. I don't want Redmond. Definitely going to do this one. I'm definitely Tam O'Shanter is going to have a little bit of a premium for those of you who sell them Tam O'Shanter, but it's going to be a comp. It's the same type of, I don't really want new construction. All right. So do you see how I'm doing this now? Are you guys watching this? This is exactly what it looks like. Now this is me playing around. I'm going to go year built. See how I start honing it in? This is just what I do. So now I'm at 3+ bedroom, 12 matches. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Yep.
What view is this via? What view is this?
This is all, thank you. That's a thumbnail.
Okay.
Great question. And again, Sean, you do this how you want to do it. For me, I've done it for like almost 20 years this way. And this is just my perfect, this is me like in skimming mode. So I'm going to go really quickly so I don't bore everybody to tears. And I'm pretty liberal. I don't want to lose a good comp, especially now. So I'm going to check a lot of boxes. We're at 2180, man. That is small. Okay. I want to look at that one. So I'm going to check it. 2590. Idlewood, I want Idlewood. I want Crossroads a little bit. This one's a true story. I want to see it anyway. A lot of these I'm going to kick out, I'll tell you right now. It's a multi-level 64, but it's small square footage, but it's been remodeled. Camera view, I don't want to view home. That's going to skew me too much, I think. Okay, so let's just pretend. All right, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as a save search. Okay, and I'm going to create a new contact. Okay, it's always going to be my own email, and I'm going to save it. So I've saved that search because there's a lot. You're now into this 5, 10, 15 minutes. You want to save the search, right? And then what I want to do is I want to click cart, and I want to click new cart. I want to say CMA class cart, and I'm going to attach it to Blake, and I'm going to save it. Okay. And then I'm going to add the ones I checked to that cart. Okay. So let's say I've done this a few times. I've gone back, I've gone forth, I've gone back and forth. I'm going to view my cart. Eventually I'm going to get to a point where I view my cart. And this is where I really start drilling down. So now I'm like really drilling down, and I'm looking through, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch this really super quick to the real cart that I used. Because not that this is a real listing, because it's not. But if it was, I may have had a cart already. Okay, so so this is the real cart I used. Okay. So now I'm going to start going through these and really start, deep diving. This is smaller than my subject property, but it's the same year built. It's in a good location for me. It sold at $1,062,000. I just know ours is worth more, but now I'm really starting to look at pictures, right? This is when I'm also paying attention to staging, to finish work. This is when I'm texting the agent. How many offers did you get? All this stuff is kind of happening simultaneously. I'm training Shay. Shay, are you here, Cooking Co? She's at a walkthrough right now.
Saw her. I did see her.
She's allegedly at a walkthrough of this house, but not that she is, because that would mean I'm pre-marketing. So I'm training Shay right now. And so what I'm making her do is I'm making her call the agent so I can train her, and I'm coaching her in real time on that, how to get information out of agents, what those scripts look like. Like I'll literally listen to her on the phone, and when she's done, I'm like, okay, here's what I want. Here's how I want you to say that next time. So she's loving me right now. Okay. So we just go through, I'm really, really diving in. This is a really good comp for this one. This is a split level, but it's been remodeled, and I'm just kind of looking at it. It's a similar era. Ours is nicer, and ours has a bigger footprint, so I can kind of handicap it and kind of, weight it. Like ours is way more updated than this, but this is updated, right? So this was a comp that I kind of used. And at the end of the day, I think I did this like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I think this was my biggest comp. Yeah. So this was a house that was remodeled. This looks very similar to the subject property because, I had done the walkthrough. So this particular house has been remodeled. It's really similar. It's in Tam O'Shanter, and Tam O'Shanter is a golf course community in Bellevue it's just a great community that a lot of people want to live in. So it gets a premium. So as a result, this was my favorite comp by far. 3130 square feet. We're only about 200 off. It's a slightly smaller lot. It's in Tam O'Shanter, very similar year built. This was our comp. So then what I do is I, focus in on this comp, and I'm kind of weighing it back and forth. And then I go to my method that I am going to teach you, and then I'm going to kick it over to Blake. I'm going to teach you my method. You don't have to use this every time, but I have to tell you, I have used this for years, and it has helped me so much. So here's what this looks like. So I have a very simple spreadsheet, and this spreadsheet has been copied 1,000 times. Like, I don't even know how many times. In this case, it's fake clients because this is not a coming soon listing. This is just a fictitious property. But if it were a real client, I may have made up those names that you just saw there. I put my subject property square feet on them, and then I start plugging in. Remember those comps you saw? Okay. I start plugging in, you know, that Tam O'Shanter prompt, this Tam O'Shanter one here, that sold at $460 a foot, okay? So that was the most expensive listing. It sold at $460 a foot. If we took that same price per square foot for our subject property, it would make our subject property 1.541. That's my baseline. Like, that is how my brain thinks. I'm like, okay, that's the top of the line. We're not going above that. Like, that we know is the ceiling. And then what I'm trying to do is trying to find the floor. So in this case, you know, I went through all the comps, and one of the comps at $397 a foot that you know, where's my square? So that was about 65% price per, that was about 65% the square footage of the subject property. So I did some calculations where I kind of added a percentage to that, and I kind of, you know, handicapped that percentage. And that kind of came to what I would call the floor. So I knew immediately within, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that this was going to be between 135 and probably 1.5, because I think 1.541 Tam O'Shanter is at a premium. And then, and that's really typically what I do. I try to hone in all I can. And just by looking at properties in the neighborhood, I came probably within 20 or 30 minutes. My gut is this house is somewhere between 145 and 155. And the reason it went up to 155, even though the top of the line Tam O'Shanter one was 154, is that our pricing trend line is going like this right now, you know? And I know that the minute we have a property that closed, it probably sold 30 to 45 days ago. Some of them closed fast because of cash, but I figured it probably sold 30 to 45 days ago. And at the rate we're going, it's already gone up. The trend line's already gone up. So I'm padding that a little bit. And I'm just looking at the top, my ceiling, and I have my range, right? And so I don't want to spend hours and be really boring with you all. The process continues. That can go on for an hour, what you just saw, playing around, getting really specific, really weighing bedrooms. And we're not going to do that together, but that's what you can practice. You can kind of practice a process of, you know, looking for comps. So let me go through a couple of my rules.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Does situations like right now where it's low inventory and just the rules of supply and demand, does that ever weigh into your valuation?
Yes. Okay. It does. And that's what I'm saying. John, I'm almost at I'm a very conservative pricer. I price low. I always have been. So partly what happens is you get a pricing personality. I don't know if that makes sense, but over the years, the longer you guys do this, you just start seeing trends in yourself. And I have always been a super low pricer, right? It's kind of like if anyone here played baseball, and if you're a pitcher and you tend to go to the left, you just over adjust to the right over time, right? Does that make sense? I'm not a sports person, but to me that you're just adjusting for yourself. So part of it, John, is that I know that about myself. I'm super conservative. I'm a black hat. Like on the KPA scale of optimism, I am a 0. So I'm skeptical. And I poke holes in things. That's just how I'm wired. So I'm just going to I just come in low. Jamie, you said you come in low too. Yeah. So part of it is I always kind of like what I think it is. And then I automatically tend to adjust up just because that's who I am. A lot of people are high pricers, and you just kind of have to know that about yourself. Then we have this trend line that's happening, and you can get really specific about it. You can do the trend graph. You guys, I'm showing you trend graphic numbers usually once a month. Ben did it this month. Wasn't Ben great? Do you guys like Ben at the network meeting? I know he's better. We just can't get him every month. I'm sorry. But every month I give you guys appreciation numbers, and you can get scientific and say, okay, well, King County appreciated, 12% last year. That's a point a month. You can kind of take that and go, okay, well, this comp was 3 months ago. And remember, it's not so much when the comp closed. You have to look at when it went pending and when it sold, because that's when it ratified. So you can get scientific and go, okay, I'm going to bump it up 3 or 4 points, or you can just kind of just guess. So in this case, John, I sort of took everything I know about myself. I went, okay, that Tam O'Shanter comp, my favorite comp, almost a straight ahead comp, a couple hundred square feet lower. It was at 1.541 a few months ago. The market's gone up. I'm a low pricer. I kind of think the price is probably between 1.45 and 1.55. And that, my friend, is the difference between me and Blake. I can do that. I can intuit. Like I can use my rules. I'll give you some of my rules and I can do my method. You can too. And we're not really beholden to any rules as long as we're accurate and we have a good sense and we know our inventory. Part of the benefit of a realtor pricing is that we've seen, if you're working an area that you're pricing in, you've seen so much inventory. You have a really good, you've been in more houses probably than an appraiser or as many. And so I think we can intuit more, right? We're not beholden to rules that Blake is. Makes sense? So, but I do want to go over a couple of my rules and I'm going to toss it over to Blake. Okay, here's some of my rules. When I'm doing, I should have probably showed you, one of the first things I do is I want to see what's been on the market over the last few years. At one point, you would have seen me take their immediate neighborhood, literally like 1 or 2 blocks around their house. I want to know what's sold in the last 2 or 3 years, because I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but what sellers will do is a seller will go, oh, my neighbor just sold their house, you know, whatever. And it was like 18 months ago, right? They think it was 6 months ago, but it was like 18 months ago. So I always want to know exactly what's sold. And it also kind of gives me an idea of like, what's the general price range of this neighborhood? Like I just do that really quick. I'll go, okay, what's sold in the 1 or 2 block radius in the last few years? And I don't do any parameters. I don't do price. I don't even do a lot of product type. If there's a condo or a townhome that's sold, I kind of want to know. The farther I go out, the more specific I get. So because of the map I showed you guys was pretty far out. Remember how the borders that I drew were really far? I had to get pretty specific. Like if I'm going to look at a house in Tam O'Shanter, it needs to be a pretty straight ahead comp. But if I'm going to look at a house on their street, it doesn't have to be a straight ahead comp. I need to know what's sold on their street. Does that make sense? So my rule is the farther out I go, the more specific I am in my search parameters. Okay. One of my other rules is the one I explained to you already about the square footage. Ground related square footage is the most premium. And there have been times where that little spreadsheet you saw when my brain is really, really hurt, where I have broken it down. It's very rare, but high end luxury, like when you get in that $3 to $5 million range, I have broken it down by floors. I have done it. I don't like to do it. I don't think that way. That's more how Blake's brain thinks, but anyway. Okay, so let me just look at my rules here. I think that's the gist of it. I tend to go, I don't know, 20, 25% up or down in square footage and adjust. So the smaller a home, the higher the price per square foot, most likely in your search area. So if a home is 2,000 square feet and mine's 3,300, we can't extrapolate that same price per square footage from a 2,000 square foot home. But if you're looking at a home that's 5,000 square feet, that's going to typically have a way lower, as long as they're comp and they're in the area. And so, you know, all I can say about that is that you just have to kind of get a feel for it and just kind of determine. So does that make sense? Yes. Sorry, I think this is kind of boring. All right, Blake.
Not boring at all.
I can't make Blake a co-host for some reason.
That's okay. You know I don't Zoom well, so.
Well, but you have to share your screen, don't you?
He's a co-host. He's a
I'll just screw things up if I start trying to do that.
Well, you're spotlighted now.
So if everyone thought that was boring, then it's about to get really boring. So I think everything Via said was actually really good and spot on. From the appraisal side of things, you know, there is no right or wrong way to do an appraisal. It's called scope of work. So every appraiser is going to do stuff different. And what I'm going to tell you isn't necessarily biblical. Well, I know it's not biblical. It's a good outline. So that doesn't mean that another appraiser is going to sit there and look at my appraisal and say, wow, that's horrible. I would have to really screw up for that to happen, and vice versa with anyone else's reports. So
that's like actually interesting. I kind of thought it was more specific, I guess.
It is specific, but with the scope of work, It just depends how that appraiser's mind works as far as what they determine to be a comp. Just like how you were talking about, your approach to doing a CMA, it's going to be very similar. You're not going to get an older appraiser to all of a sudden start thinking differently. So with the appraisal, it's an opinion of value. And I've seen people run with that a little too far when they get an appraisal that doesn't meet contract price, and they say, well, that's just an opinion. The one thing I want to point out is I also am an agent, and appraisers are no better than agents. Agents actually make way bigger checks. So it's, there's more to be gained from the agent side. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's about understanding the data, that we're all using the same data. And so we do have certain rules. Then I'll get into some of those basic guidelines that we have to go by. And then more appraisal 4.0, we don't even have to follow those rules in situations like this market, as long as we just explain in the addendum. But the more explaining we do, the more the underwriter comes back and says, what about this? What about that? So we don't like to get off in the weeds, because then getting in the weeds can kill deals sometimes, or blow up our report, or we have to redo it. So appraisers, they do understand what they're looking at. A lot of agents will get frustrated, and I think the reason that I'm trying to do this is just to kind of close that gap of trying to get you guys to understand what we have to look at, so that you're not having issues come appraisal time. You kind of already know about them. I don't have enough time to get into everything. However, Via brought up a really good point. The square footage is ultimately what's most important. And if you're pricing by price per square foot, please stop unless you're an investor, because that's not going to help you out at all. And it's going to get you so far off if you're using that as a metric. I mean, you'd have to be a long time in to even understand price per square foot, or unless you're doing like a condo within the same condo complex where they're all the same and the neighbor could tell you what the house is worth, you're probably okay on price per square foot. So the style code, when Via was talking about this is how we do it as appraisers. I have way more probably criteria saved in the MLS so that I can hone down exactly what I'm looking for special situations. But I'm going to look at the house style, and so is everybody else that's appraising, because a single story, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have all single stories on the appraisal report. There's really no reason to have anything different. Same thing with the 2-story. There's no reason to have anything different, unless, and we're not going to get too far into this, but unless you're in a specific neighborhood, like let's talk about Mill Creek Country Club, you're going to be all different styles in there because you can't go out of the country club. And so those reports are just a pain. So you are going to stay specific in location in those situations. But we have to stay within 20% for gross living area. So what I want to tell you about gross living area before I get too far, if you go to the county website, you go to the county assessor's website, and I can show someone how to do this and pull it up or whatever at a different time, but you go and you type in the parcel number where you get the tax information from, I do Snohomish County a lot, and you'll scroll down and it'll say view detailed structure. You're going to want to click on that link, and it's going to bring up the structure. That's what we're looking at. So when you have the biggest disconnect I'm finding, where appraisals are getting blown up and people are writing $100,000 checks as buyers that probably didn't know they were going to do that. The basement is basement. On a split level, that's basement. Anything below the door is basement. Anything on slab is basement. And that's not us as appraisers saying, hey, that's basement. That's because that's what we say. That's what the county designates it as. So that for us, we have to bracket everything high, low. And the reason is so that the reader, who's someone sitting at a computer, never seen the house, they have to take our word for it. So they have to see everything from the top and they have to see everything at the bottom. And then where our number arrives is somewhere more in the middle. It has to be bracketed. It just has to be, because we can't just take everything bigger and better and go down from there and say, oh, here's our value. We have to have something that's not as good coming up. You have to prove the bottom end and you have to prove the high end. We don't have an option. So that's what we have to do. So when it comes to like your Rambler, that's GLA, that's gross living area, anything above ground. So your second story, for us, we're not going to take and differentiate between that. That's all above grade. So we have to stay within 20% of that. When you have a tri-level, split level, one story with a basement, those are all the same. And the reason is because it's one level above grade and everything else is below grade. So what you really want to bracket is the upper GLA. That's what matters most. And then the overall square footage also matters. So if you have a tri-level and you're pulling 2 stories and you're telling your buyers, oh, here's, what we think the value is, or, these are what the comps are showing, that is not a comp. And you're going to get in trouble where people are writing big checks, because if you have stuff with a basement, you're going to have comps that have basements. That's just the way it works. You're never 99 times out of 100, you're not going to see a 2-story on anything split level, tri-level, 1 story with a basement. It's just not going to happen. And I've seen agents that send over what they call comps and they're all 2 stories. And then you wonder, like, well, did that buyer know? Because then they're writing $100,000 check, so it can be on the listing side, like Via's saying, you can just kind of put a range and you can kind of throw it in there and it's fine, but when it comes to the buyers putting in and they're saying, hey, what do you think the house is worth? In my humble opinion, I think you got to be really close with that if they're asking you the number.
Blake? Okay, so first of all, I just want to make sure everyone heard that. I think that's really important, because a lot of our jobs, whether we're the buyer's agent or the listing agent, is, if we have any doubt, is to go meet the appraiser and or leave a package for the appraiser, right? And when I went to that appraiser panel, and the reason I invited Blake on is that you have to understand their rules, right? And their rules basically are, and they're smart rules, Rambler to a Rambler. Some of you might call them ranches if you're from different markets, but one level to one level. I did not, so I use 2-story and split level and tri-level a little bit interchangeably. I'll handicap Blake. Is that not, can we not do that?
I wouldn't, other than you brought up a good point. When you pull up just a snapshot of the area, you should look at everything. Mm-hmm. And you'll see what things are selling for. That's just to get a temperature of the market and what's happening. But if you're actually going to look at what is comparable to your house that you're going to list or that you're going to have someone buy, it's definitely style code matters. It definitely matters, because you're going to get skewed by throwing those 2 stories on there, because we're not going to be able to use it as an appraiser unless you're in a very exclusive area where there's no sales, where we have to use that and make adjustments.
So I just think it's really important that everyone kind of understands that, especially if you're a new agent, you're writing your first deal. Someone asked Blake what Blake meant by writing a check for $100,000. And Amy, what's happening is our buyers are having to waive appraisals. So, let's just use simple math. If it's a $100,000 home and the client's putting 20% down, that's 80% loan to value, right? They're getting an $80,000 loan on a $100,000 property. And if the house appraises at $90,000 instead of $100,000, 80% of $90,000 is, math please, let's just call it $70,000, right? And so that means instead of $20,000, the buyer would have to bring how much to closing? If it's now, instead of an $80,000 loan, it's a $70,000 loan, and the house is 100, who's good at math? What would the buyer have to bring to closing?
30?
Yeah, 30 instead of 20. So, but do we have $100,000 houses anymore? No. So when Blake says $100,000, let's go to $1 million. Let's say they're putting 20% down, they're putting 200,000 down, and they're getting an 80% loan to value loan, and the house doesn't appraise for $1 million, it appraises for 900. What are they? They're adding $100,000 cash that they have to bring to closing, right? That is happening every month in our brokerages. We are getting a lot of low appraisals. That's why I brought Blake on. So if you're a new buyer and you got your first deal in escrow, you want to definitely go and make sure there's multiple offers, your client's paid over asking. You want to put together a package for the appraiser. You want this to win, right? And so you need to, you know, like Blake's rules are really important, because even if you think something's a comp, they just may not be able to use that.
Right, it's not. It's just a sale at that point. It's a closed sale.
Yeah.
So I think what's really important to understand here is, because we've had it, I've done tons of low appraisals, and it's not fun. We don't like to do it. It takes me 2 hours to pull comps on a low appraisal, sometimes 2.5 hours, because we have everyone coming back to us and we've already seen all the stuff, because we already have to make our case ahead of time, because we can't get blindsided, because we don't want the agents to pull comps that make the report or blow up the report. If you blow up our high end that's coming down and we screw up where it's adjusting up, now we don't have a high end. And it's just a disaster. So we're going to avoid all that up front. So to challenge an appraisal, you can do it and you can win. There's no doubt about it. But the point is this: if you're putting a 22 AD in, that person should be ready to write that incomplete check. That's what I tell my buyers that have put it in. Just be ready to write that check, because even as an appraiser, someone might use different stuff and then they might not change it. And then my person, they got to write that check. And we've had people where they've been willing to write a $50,000 check and they're only writing a $10,000 check. And they've been the worst, hounding us. So it's like, well, wait a minute. You said you were going to spend 50 and you're only spending 10. So that tells me that they weren't aware that they were even going to be spending any of that money. And so anyway, that's kind of, I guess, getting off track a little bit, but that is kind of important in this market, is understanding your comparables. And that's, I guess, what I'm trying to point out here. So you do need to look at the neighborhood snapshot. And then I'm going to break down the style right away. And then we also are going to bracket the lot size. We're going to bracket the age of the home. If we can't bracket the age of the home, we're going to at least have to bracket with the effective age, which is getting into what Via was talking about the surfaces of the house, the finishes inside. Now, inside, if somebody went through and put new countertops in and threw some paint, that's called an update. But if somebody went through and changed the cabinets and did the counters and did more of a thorough job, that's a remodel. And that's important. There's a big distinction there. So when you look at the outside of the house, like, you know, we have quality ratings, and they're not secret. They're actually county information. But a lot of your typical homes that are just a basic box, I mean, they might have great features inside with the, you know, the quartz, everyone's doing basically the same thing. You know, those are essentially Q4. When you get into houses that have like the dormers, you know, like the above the windows and kind of the a little more fancy architecture, more curb appeal, you're kind of getting into Q3. When you're getting into nicer houses like down where Via's at, you're going to see some Q2 houses. So just understand that the best way to look at it from an agent, look at the curb appeal, and please don't look at the landscaping. We can't value landscaping like that. The underwriters hate that. So when I'm talking about curb appeal, I'm talking about like the actual structure.
Wait, what? Is that true? That's actually a big aha for me. Like
100% true. So here's where it sucks for us. We went to this house in Everett, and I've never seen a backyard like this. I was like, holy crap! Like that's phenomenal. Like I wanted that backyard. I was taken back. And it was the most amazing, intricate, tiny little backyard with like the covered patio, which we were able to give value to that, like the covered porch thing. But like this dude had like paved paths, like with stamped concrete and just ridiculous, like beautiful. He spent $90,000 back there. Okay. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. We can't match that. So what we're going to do as an appraiser, we're going to look at that, or I'm going to look at that. I'm going to say, okay, this is a really nice freaking yard. So what I'm going to do is try and find the nicest comps I can find to try and get that value conveyed, because we're not going to like analyze outlets and things like that. Like people said, oh, I got new outlets. Well, we can't extract what an outlet is worth. You know what I mean? Like we don't get too far into the weeds. Otherwise I would never make any money. That's the reality. And it's the same thing for the other appraisers. We're only looking at the main things. So we're looking at like the surfaces, like what Via is saying, all the finishes, you know, that stuff matters. The quality of construction matters. So if you know you have a client that has put more care into their house, because that is a true thing. Like you can go to some houses and they've taken better care of their house than everyone else, then you need to find comps that support that. And they're going to be the higher end comps within that, the size of the house, the same style of the house. That's what you're looking for. You know, when you say like, oh, there's fresh paint and things like that, that's great and all, but those are maintenance items. A roof, those are maintenance items. Now, if a house has a new roof, buyers are going to love that, right? And if someone took better care of the outside of the house, we're going to notice that, and we're going to start to try and find like better comps, the better looking comps, but we can only use what's available. So you can never be the high house ever. There always has to be a high end coming down. I don't know one appraiser that will write a report that doesn't have a high end. I mean, that's suicide.
Hey, Blake.
Yeah.
Alex asked a really good question. And that was, what about exterior structures like an outdoor kitchen or hardscape? Like I know you said pass, but like, I don't know, more.
Like shops, a lot in Snohomish have like the outdoor shops and.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah. So, God, I could go on for an hour and a half.
No, you have like 3 more minutes because I have to spend the last part of it, how to present this to the seller.
Okay. So we have to match everything that matters. So like with a shop, we need to find like another shop, but with an outdoor kitchen, then we would have to find something with an outdoor kitchen that's the same style house that's sold recently, that it usually doesn't happen. So we're probably not going to give any value for like an outdoor kitchen, even though it probably cost them 20 grand to put in. I know that's not what you guys want to hear, but that's the reality.
No, but it's still good to know.
Yeah. And like some people will say, oh, that's a bigger lot. It's like 1,000 square feet. Who cares? Like that adjusts to like nothing, you know, it's very minimal. So the comps are important, right? So right now, to wrap it up, because we don't have a lot of time, we're looking at the latest comps. That's what we're looking at, like within the last 30 days. We are going further away currently than we normally would to find later sales. It's the only thing we can do to try and stay pace with the market. So when somebody says, well, appraisers are always behind, this is the new price. Well, we're not that far behind if something just closed 4 days ago. Like we're not light years behind. We have to be behind.
No more double pump, LOL. Someone has a question. Oh, walkout basement.
Yes.
Hi, this is out. Hi, this is Love. That's actually my son's screen name, and he stuck it on my computer for some reason. I was wondering, Blake, so if you take comps from, say, 70 days ago that have sold, do you guys factor in the appreciation of the market for your price point?
Yeah, absolutely. 70 days is too old for right now. Like, we're trying not to do that. Like, it's hard to, there's just too much to get into, really. But yes, if you're trying to figure out like where your house is at, try and take comp within 30 days. If it has a basement, you have to match the basement. If it's the smaller square footage houses are where you're going to have trouble in this market. You're going to have trouble because you're going to have trouble finding something that's worse than it to come up. That's what you're going to have trouble doing. But I don't feel like we got through, like,
Blake, I have a question for you that I've always wondered. I have been told this, and I'm wondering if it's an urban myth or not. And that is, if a listing's pending and the appraiser can get a hold of the listing agent and they share the sales price, can you use that?
No, but it helps us. So for like a pending, yeah, the pendings, it helps us because then we can see. So like if you're pricing your pendings really low, like I price, I guess, similar to Via, I'm more conservative. But if you're pricing low, thinking to get a bidding war, that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help your fellow realtors or anything, because our pendings have to adjust up to our price. So having your house priced properly is like pretty important. But yeah, we can adjust with the list to sales price ratio. And in some cases, it's been 9% on some. So I'll make a 9% adjustment off of the pending price. One thing that I will leave you with this, because I think this is important, and I would never share a lot of this stuff that I will share with Keller Williams with other people, because I don't really care. But I think for the Keller Williams agents, we get a bad rap sometimes, especially from some of the other brokerages, which I'm not going to get into all that. But the point is this: we're not stupid just because we're from Keller Williams, and we just get put into this like box that I don't agree with. So here's the deal. Appraisers are not supposed to pull comps without going to the subject property. And so if you want your property to appraise in this market and you're concerned about it appraising and you have the comps, which I'll leave notes with Via, I'll put together something that's better than my chicken scratch so you can kind of understand what criteria we're using. Because if you give us non-comps and you try and say, oh, here's what we came up with, you're dead in the water. We're not listening. We're just smiling and nodding because they're just not comps. They're just closed sales. So what you want to do is when the appraiser's making the appointment, a lot of times the appraisers that have been doing it for a while, they're going to pull the comps before they even come out there because they have all the pictures. Now, I've only been doing it 2 years. And you're not really supposed to pull the comps. And I can pull the comps. I'm not an idiot. I could pull them ahead of time. The reason I don't is because I get there and it's like, oh, great, a second kitchen, or oh, great, this. And then I just wasted an hour pulling comps. So I gave up on it. But I guarantee you that the majority of the appraisers were so busy that they're pulling comps ahead of time. And sometimes they even pre-type their reports. So by the time you show up to that appointment with your little packet, they already know the value. They already have their high and low. So when the appraiser will always call and book their appointment to say when they're going to come. In my opinion, I would send your packet. I would ask them, and I've done this and it works great. I just say, hey, I've got some, I don't tell them I'm an appraiser either because I just don't want to do that. I say, hey, here's the comparables I use to price the property and I just wanted to send them to you. And I say, hey, I know you don't really need them, but I just wanted to show you how we came up with the price. And I guarantee you they're okay with that. I love it when you guys give me comps. You just make my job easier. If you give me 6 good comps, so all I have to do is look at the screen and be like, holy shit, this guy knows their comps or this gal. you just saved me time. I love it. We're just people too. We're not like, we don't get offended but what we don't want to be sold. We're not buying the house. So when we show up there, we don't want to hear how great this is, how great that is, or that. We're just there to look at our stuff. But if you provide those up front, I think you're going to have a better time, because you're trying to give them that high end. You want to find that better comp that supports that high end. If you, if your contract price went way up. And so the appraiser can use that. They might use that. You might actually skew their judgment a little to be like, oh yeah, that one's great. And they build their report off of that. And I think that's the best takeaway I think that I can give you, for especially like the agents that have been doing this a while.
Blake, can you stick around on chat?
Yeah, I can sit here and.
Cool. All right. Because we only have 20 more minutes, and I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on, it's one thing. So it's one thing to price. It's another thing to present it to your sellers in a way that that is effective and doesn't lock you into losing a listing if you're a low pricer, right? So really briefly, give me a second here. Sorry, screen share. Okay, sorry, I'm not gonna do, let me see if I can, is there a way to do this where it doesn't do full screen? All right, never mind, I'll figure that out later. Okay, so the first thing I do, and I'm gonna kind of go fast, and so, we can, next L3, we can finish it up or whatever if we don't finish it, but the first thing I do when I'm sitting down and we're doing a CMA, and this can either be at a listing presentation or at a CMA appointment. And for those of you who haven't heard me distinguish those before, those are two different appointments for me. For me, a listing appointment is they've decided to list their home. It's just a matter of who they're going to use. A CMA appointment, I have one on Sunday, is they don't know if they're going to sell, but they're ready to hear pricing information, home prep list information, and kind of get the data to start making some decisions. That's a CMA appointment to me. When you work in, for those of us here in King County in higher price points, we have to be willing to do CMAs. That's kind of important for us. And some of you guys in a more transactional market that are churning through more units, you may not bother doing as many CMAs, like I wouldn't probably, but when you're dealing in higher price points, that's actually how we get our conversion over time, right? These are long-standing relationships. That's kind of how we just have to kind of do that. So the first thing I do is I sit down and I show them the trend graphics. And these are nothing like the way our trend graphics look right now. If you look at these charts and you know anything about the market, right? Sorry, I really hate it on Zoom. I can't show you full screen, so it looks really small. But in a nutshell, I go through trend graphics. And do we have a trend graphics class planned, Lena?
Not.
I think we do have an L3. Do we not?
Hold on, let me look really quick.
Well, I think we do. And I'm going to really go fast. So basically, what I talk about is I say, okay, Blake, I'll role play with Blake. Blake, what you're looking at is a 14-month graph. The light green bar is active inventory in the price range we're talking about, right? This is active inventory. This one is Whatcom County. And this is, there's no across all price ranges in this case, but sometimes it'll be between 400 and 600 or between 500 and 700, whatever it is. And the red bar is what went pending on that particular month, okay? So this is what you're looking at. And you can see right now, we're increasing inventory and we're kind of decreasing in sales. This is obviously not, this is a very old chart, right? Very old chart. I should have updated it. Sorry, I didn't. This second graph is the same data, but this is what we call inventory supply. And what you need to know is a 6-month supply is what we call a neutral market. Anywhere from 5 to 7 months, 4 to 7 months supply is a neutral market. And that means it's not really a buyer's market, not really a seller's market. It's kind of neutral. If we go over 6-7 months supply, it's a buyer's market. There is more supply than demand and prices can start going down. You know, during the downturn, there were times where I was looking at 36-month supplies. I was looking at like 18-month supplies, 24-month supplies. It was horrible. And all that means is if you're looking for a house in, you know, Edgemore for 800,000, it means there's 20 houses to choose from, and you're just going to go make 5 offers and get the lowest one, right? I mean, it just really pushes price down. Now, on the flip side, if you're under a 4-month supply, certainly if you're under a 3-month supply, that's a heavy duty seller's market, right? And that means that there's less inventory than demand. And that means prices can go up because there's more people bidding on the houses than we have. In this market, we're at a 2 to 4 week supply. I don't know what adjectives I can use to express to you how extreme of a seller's market this is. It is the most extreme seller's market most of us will ever sell in our lifetimes. And that means that there's an exorbitant amount of demand on the supply. So it means we can kind of have some fun with pricing and negotiation, right? So what we're entering into this pricing discussion is with Blake, Mr. Seller, is the context of this conversation is we're having it in a high level seller market. Does that make sense, Blake?
Yes.
It's going to favor us. Okay. Just want to make sure that you kind of understood the context. All right. Now we'd have the same conversation if it was a buyer's market too, right? So, you know, I sometimes will go through, it depends if they're a high D. This is a little bit of a high D thing. If you have any reason to believe your seller has looked at Zillow, by the way, do you think all of our sellers look at Zillow?
Yes.
They do. Yeah, they do. So you might want to mention Zillow here. We call those ABMs. You know, Realist has an ABM. Redfin has ABMs now. I usually do. I don't have a slide deck for that. I usually just do it in passing, you know, at some point during the presentation. So Ben Kinney's market analysis presentation, he does what he calls the 555. And what he does is it's really, really strong. We kind of can't do it right now in this market because most of us don't have 15 comps anymore, right? But the general thing of it is, and by the way, everyone in our brokerages gets Brivity CMA for free. And I should have said this already. Most of the time, you guys, my sellers are receiving what you're about to see. My sellers receive their Brivity CMA by email the day before we're going to meet, the night before we're going to meet. And what I say to them is, hey, these are the comparables that I'm looking at. There's no price on it. So if you're taking notes, there's no price on here. I say, these are the comparables that I'm focusing on for our meeting tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing you at 3 or whatever it is, okay? And this is exactly what they get. This is a real listing I had that I sold last year, right? Longtime clients. And I sent this to them and this is exactly what they got. This is like a copy of it, right? And it just goes through and, it shows all the comps. And you can see the green is active, the yellow is pending, and the red is sold. And then these were expireds right here in gray. And so they automatically, by getting this information, they're getting, well, what do you think they're seeing? Do they have a feel for the range at this point if they're seeing these? So am I managing expectations a little bit? I'm not giving a price, but it's like, look, literally these houses were across the road from them. And it's really, really great if you can get these in their hands beforehand, right? So they're getting this, and it's harder to use a 555, which Ben teaches right now, but I think that is the best way to do it if we go back, when we go back to a market where we can do that. Okay, sorry, let me go back to this.
Yeah. And when you do the 555, 9 times out of 10, doesn't the client pick the price that you would tell them after?
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. Yeah. So this is what I do. So we go through all the comps and I really focus in on a few. So I should have probably stayed on that Brivity page. Let me just walk you through it, Blake. So going back to my CMA, if you remember, I kind of honed in on that one Tam O'Shanter comp, right?
Yeah.
So Blake, what I find is that, we're in such a low inventory environment. I usually find in my almost 20 years of doing this that comparably speaking, we focus on one or two houses, and that's really the best way to do it. It's almost like a side-by-side comparison. And the top two comps, I think, are these. I totally get there. No house is ever going to be perfect, but let's talk about these two comps and what my mindset is and what my process is. Is that okay, Blake? I want you to understand my process. I'm looking for, similar year built, as similar square footage and lot as I can, as similar of a neighborhood as I can, definitely in East Bellevue, because that's where we are. I understand Tam O'Shanter is in a direct neighborhood, that in fact I would, it's probably a little more premium, and they agreed. But it's pretty good because it's a neighborhood consisting of houses of the same era ours is, And so there is going to be a little premium, but we can adjust for that. And so a couple of things that I notice is this is the same specifications in their kitchen. It's almost identical. Same with the bathrooms. The flooring, the look, the color schemes is very, very similar. It's probably going to get the same buyer. Your lot's a little bigger. From a usability standpoint, their lot feels pretty good. It feels pretty good. It's facing in the same direction. You're getting the same light. These are good comps, and they usually always agree because they can see what's there. And then I'd say, so Blake, on this one, if we just extrapolated this price per square foot, it would put your house at 1.541, right? I'm not sure we're there. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. But let's shelve that and silo that, and let's go over to this other guy. And then I'm going to kind of find my floor. I would say, now this house, we're a lot more premium than this house, just like I walked you guys through it. And this is what this one looks like, right? And this one is, I'm going to make up a number, I don't remember it, but if we extrapolate and do my price per square foot analysis, that's at a probably 1.4. So, Blake, Mr. Seller, that kind of puts us in a pretty wide range, 1.4 to 1.55. And Blake, this is what I know. What I know in this market is nobody can price a home. And if I know you've interviewed, by the way, they interviewed 8 agents and teams on the listing I'm bringing on, which is shocking. That's a lot. I said, I know you've interviewed 8 people. And can I ask you, were they all over the board? Were prices all over the board, Blake?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. We're all looking at the same data, and this just boils down to experience and interpretation, right? So any of the 8, did any of the 8, were they adamant and definitive about what they thought the price should be?
Yeah, Redfin said they knew. They used their estimate.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, usually if they're interviewing that many people, by the way, guys, they're going to say that some of them are really different. I'll say, okay, I've done this almost 20 years and sold hundreds and hundreds of homes, and no one can be definitive about what the price is going to be. I'm the first to tell you, no one knows. So no one can be definitive. We're all looking at the same data. So my script that I use every single time. So Blake, this is where I really want to spend our time today. There's 2 conversations we're going to have. One of them is likely sales price. So there's a price conversation about what the likely sales price will be, what the range is. But the second conversation is, what is our pricing strategy going to be? It's a little different. So what we think the sales price is going to be, certainly we want to get as close to it as possible. But we have options. We can price on the low end and the mid range, or on the high end of that. So we've talked about 1.4 to 1.55, right? So Blake, I highly, highly recommend, years of experience. My clients have always done the best when they price right on the midline. That is always where I like to price. I do not like underpricing a home to get multiple offers. I just don't think it's a smart strategy. So, 1.4 feels really low to me. I'm pretty nervous pricing at 1.55. That's the top of the range. That's what we want to go for. It's what we want to see. But that makes me nervous too. We're extrapolating to get there, right? So if this were my home, I would probably be looking at a price of 1.475 to 1.5. What are your thoughts on that? I'm still never giving an exact price.
Yeah, I was hoping to get 1.6. Mine's got new carpet, and I just painted the den. and it looks really nice.
So it's hard to role play these because I just did like a Speedy Gonzalez version. That little role play we did is, there's a lot of micro agreements happening in there. There's a lot of, I came out and said the price a lot sooner than, I mean, that is kind of happening along the way, like your objection, so to your objection, I would say, yeah, that'd be awesome. What are your thoughts on, okay, well, let me shelve that a minute. What usually gets me listings? I'm giving you my secret sauce, you guys. 45 people stayed. I'm like, if I give you this script, this is like my script. Okay, so you 45 people are about to get rewarded. Wake up, everybody.
I know what door I'm gonna go knock on in Bellevue after you give
I know, right? Yeah. Don't you dare. I have a signed listing. No, I do not, because that would be coming soon. And I did not, no, that was a fake listing. Okay, this is what gets me listings. You ready? Blake, this is what I know. You interviewed 8 agents, and I'm guessing you narrowed it down to 2 or 3 of us, but it's probably 2 of us. And I always assume I'm one, by the way. I say us. That's just, is that correct? It was probably down to a couple of people, Blake?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I really like your presentation.
Yeah. So that's usually the case. I don't know who the other person is that you're, that I'm, you're weighing me against. I can almost guarantee they probably do really good marketing. I do really good marketing. I have a feeling we both do really great marketing. I have a feeling we both have really great photography. Mine's the best. My drone guy is superb. Everything I do looks phenomenal. I've got, I sent you a pre-listing packet. We do single property websites. I use Bribity, by the way, if you're wondering. We do beautiful marketing. I mean, I'm a marketing stickler. We're syndicated on over, 500 websites. We're the only company that's on fang.com in Asia, the largest real estate search site there. I mean, we rock in our marketing. And, I have a feeling they're probably good too. I don't think that's how you should choose us. Have you kind of decided what your parameters are? Do you know how you're going to choose the right agent?
We just want someone who's going to, do the job right and put our needs first.
That's right. The real way, Blake, to choose a real estate agent is negotiation. That is the secret sauce. Can I share something with you? I know what it looks like. I know what's going on in your head. I know what you and Robert are talking about. I know it. What you're talking about is my Aunt Tilly could sell a house in this market. My, 18-year-old son could stick a sign in my house and we'd probably get multiple offers. I actually think that's true. What I know is not true is if you are a good negotiator in this market, no one has been given a bigger gift than a good negotiator. My average price that I'm able to increase for my sellers is $50,000 at the negotiating table. I am making them $50,000 on average when I get multiple offers in Blake. And when you look at what you're paying me, you will actually make more by paying me to represent you on your home than if you didn't pay somebody.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
That's how you need to decide. Negotiation, I have studied it and worked it for 19 years. It is my strong suit. Getting someone from viewing a property into multiple offers is my superpower. And that's where I win. And I have never been given the gift of a market like this before. And I can make you so much more money on this home if you let me price it on the midline and, kind of let me prep your house the way I think we should prep it. I promise you, you will be very happy. I have a whole bunch of testimonials of clients who are. That's how I beat eight other groups. So when you're going over price, it's hard for me to isolate it and just show you how to present price without all that other stuff. So I think that is important for you to know. But I am gonna give you one more tidbit before we go. So we're all great at, it's giving your competitor the benefit of the doubt. Now, you don't always want to use that script. Let's say you're competing against one other no-name broker. I don't know, don't always use that script, like be smart about it. But look, if someone's in Bellevue, guys, and they're interviewing 8 teams, like they're going to be good at marketing. You know what I mean? Like if they had that appointment, they're going to be good at marketing. Okay. let me show you one last thing. One last script. And you probably heard this one before, but I'll just kind of show you how I do it. This falls into the category too of, you're probably not going to use this script too much in this market, but I want to train you for the next market too. No market lasts forever, right? So in a typical market that's a little more neutral or buyer even, this is just my long-term script. And I actually show this graphic, or I draw this, I draw it on a pen. I turn over a piece of paper and I draw it on a pen. And that is that, the best way to test price is to list a property, and we only know when we've gotten to fair market value when a seller thinks they haven't gotten enough and a buyer thinks they got too much. I mean, in a normal market, that's fair market value, right? This market isn't normal. So basically my rule is, when someone says, well, I want to try it high, I say, okay, we can try it high. Here's how we're going to know where we are with pricing. Okay, because one of 3 things or 4 things are going to happen. Number one, we're going to price it. And we're going to get it all ready, and the photography and the marketing is going to be great because I do great marketing. And no one's going to come to our party. We're going to be all dressed up, and no one comes to the party. Hardly any showings. We might get a few showings right at first because it's a new listing, and then it drops off. That's when we know we're probably at least 10% overpriced. Yeah, it's just kind of the way that the market is telling us very, very quickly. The second thing that'll happen is we'll get some showings, and we'll get some, it'll be okay. No one's going to necessarily bag it, but we're not going to get any offers. I go into ratios a lot. We don't have time to go into ratios, but if we get about 8 showings in a 10-day period and everyone's like, it's okay, I don't know, we're probably 5 to 9% over. The tricky one comes when we're getting pretty decent showings and people are complimenting the house. In fact, people are even say the house is priced right. In fact, a lot of comments I get in this little ring is they'll say, you know what, this house actually, it's going to sell. It's really great. It's just not quite right for my clients, right? That's when we're just over. Now that's always the interesting one. We're probably 1 to 5% over, which is weird because you'd think people would just make an offer anyway, but Seattle's we have a high sales price to list price ratio in general. Even when our market dives, we typically don't go much but below like 96% sales price to list price in most of the markets I work in. And so what I find, Mr. Seller, is that when we're at this point, one little nudge usually sells it. So depending on if we're talking 880, oftentimes if we get it down to like 870, 868, that usually will do it. It just needs a little bit of a nudge to get someone to write an offer. The fourth thing that happens is it sells right away, and hip, 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 hooray, right? It's great. And so this is a good script and a good approach, and we can kind of revisit this as the market shifts. You won't need it now, but this is a very common, and this is kind of where I spend my time actually a lot on a market that's not like the one we're in. So it's 1:30. Shoot, we don't have time for any questions. So it's 1:30. So I can stick around for a few minutes if you guys have any questions and want to stay. Otherwise, Blake, thank you so much for taking 90 minutes out of your day and helping us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Via.
Yeah. Laura, do you want to stay on for me to answer that? Can you give a tip for new agents? Are you here?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So tell me what's your question there? Can you give a tip for new agents presentation?
So I'm a really new, and I don't
Can you get on camera?
Oh, let me check. Okay. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Okay, so say that again.
Okay, so I'm brand new agent, no experience in sales. And in sales, I didn't did any presentation yet. So how do you compete with other agents? Or what is your script when you need to compete with other agents and you don't have any experience?
Laura, what office are you in?
East Side.
East Side, okay. So are you in productivity coaching with David?
No.
Okay, that's okay. So Lena and Alicia, someone can get you, we have the Ben Kinney editable listing presentation and the Ben Kinney script. We're also teaching this. When am I giving my listing presentation for L3, Lena?
So, and by the way, it was June 10th, in case everybody missed it in the chat box for this chat one.
Return graphics.
The listing presentation is May 13th. Well, the fundamentals of a listing appointment are May 13th, and May 27th are the listing presentation.
Yeah.
I know though that she wants a buyer's presentation.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said listing. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, because you are doing now, what is the way it is?
Okay, so
what you are presenting now, I'm brand new.
Ryan Gregg, we role played the entire Ben Kinney listing presentation on one of my Wednesday webinars, literally in role play. So you should watch that one.
Okay.
That's all of these we do for you guys. Okay. L3 Wednesday webinars, I can't express enough. Those are for you. So it's hard to cover everything in one. The best advice I can have, and all of these we have access to on recording. So my best advice is to just start regularly listening to them, listen to 1 or 2 weeks, go to L3 every other week, and then be sure you're going to the Wednesday webinars, because over time, Laura, you just start learning scripts and you start, getting the resources, because there's so much information coming at you, it's almost better to not get it all at once in a way. And so L3, it's arced like this for a purpose. Like right now, this is CMA. This is building into May is listing month because we're in spring season. So that was on purpose. And so now we're working into it. Today we did CMA. Next time we're going to go and do fundamentals of a listing presentation. Then it's going to be the listing presentation. And so, kind of just staying focused, and kind of learning one thing, moving on to the other. Did we do buyer consult on this one, Lena?
Yes, we did.
Yes, and I listened already.
We did the buyer consult on March 25th, so there's a video.
Mm-hmm.
I
saw it already.
I sent you yesterday.
Okay. Yeah. So, my advice is to go preview as many homes as possible. If you're a new agent, your confidence is going to greatly increase if you get out there and see product almost every day. I can't stress that enough, especially in areas you want to work in, because when you go to that open house, when you get that buyer, when you get that listing presentation, when those moments come, you can't make up for lost time. If you haven't been previewing for the last 3 or 6 months, you can't make that up in 2 days. On the flip side, you can completely master a market in 6 months. That's the good news. If you preview regularly, because guys, you could kind of master it in 90 days, because you heard Blake. Most of us are trying not to go even beyond 90 days, for comps, right? So that's hopeful. You're in a pretty equal playing field in a market like this. Like, you don't have to have had 20 years of seeing homes like me. I can't go back 20 years for comps, So I hopefully that gives you confidence, but you just have to preview a lot of homes and then start practicing the fundamentals. Tap up each other, the people that you see regularly on these L3s, send them a private message and start doing, accountability calls with them every week. By the way, you guys, the 40 to 50 of you who show up to these every time, I guarantee you, and Lena will agree, you are the ones that we're going to see in a year or two on those award slides. It's always the case. The ones that show up to these trainings are always the ones that do well in real estate. So you don't know it yet. You may be feeling not confident. You're going to make it in real estate, all of you. The ones that are coming here regularly, that are showing up, that are practicing, that are doing this. Like Sean, you are going to be a rock star in real estate. It 100% will be. Whether you believe that or not, it's I know it.
I believe it. I'm trying to tell my clients, make sure they believe it. So I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know if that helped, Laura.
Yes, it is. And I saw the budget presentation, and it was really good. Yes, it gave me more. English is my second language, so using words is I think, to keep in my mind, repeat it, it's give me I think I'm going to have a better outcome.
Yeah.
So made me feel more confident. But thank you. That's really good.
It's good.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay.
Just, I think pretty similar for new agents, just taking your script, your secret sauce that the 45 of us are super thankful for. And so much of it relies on, I've done this for the last 19 years. What I know is we aren't going to have that behind us. And Jesse put a really great comment in about leveraging Ben Kinney knows, or, our group. One thing we've seen, are there any other kind of language tweaks you can think of that would be really effective, that not to mask our lack of, experience, but to say that from a level playing field, that's not my knowledge, but I have access to this wealth of knowledge. I would kind of convey that.
I'm so glad. Shell, thank you, because you're 100% right. And what I try to do whenever I train new agents is I'm trying to build your confidence up. And so the quick route to that is, the more you don't realize it, if you just did Wednesday webinars, went to all the Tuesday meetings, your local ones and our network ones, you may not believe it. What starts happening in 2 or 3 months, you're seeing statistics, you're seeing numbers, you're just hearing us talk. You hear yourself saying things. Sean, are you feeling that already? Because you've been attending a lot. It sinks in.
I agree. And you were talking about seeing home to Laura, and you had us do that. It was a 15-day boot camp, I want to say. Yeah. And that's where I met a person after an open house. I wasn't hosting. I was just going to preview, and they were late. They missed it, but I let them walk through with me, and they were just asking me stuff, and I was just answering. And all I remember leaving is saying, there's no way they know I'm 3 months into it. There's no chance. I was telling my wife. So, and these people, we'll see what happens. I'll keep you updated, but they're looking to downsize. So they would be selling, buying, and their son will be looking to buy. Still in communication with them. It's been a little bit of a slow go, but we'll see. But it just happened based on the things you're talking about. So that's why I'm shaking my head.
And Jesse, that's exactly what I was going to say. The royal we, the royal us. So Shell, what you need to, why do you think I tell you my stories and my scripts? Because we're on the same team, all of us, because my story becomes your story. So any stories I tell you, any scripts I tell you, it's now officially we, because guess what? You're on my team. We're all on the same team. So you just have to lean into that. When I go into neighborhoods that I have never sold a house, and let's be honest, I've been doing this 19 years. Do you think my first 5 years, I literally was like going for listings in neighborhoods I had never, ever been in. I remember I'm born and raised, 5th generation Washingtonian. I'd never been to Normandy Park. I didn't even know where Normandy Park was. And I find myself on a listing presentation in Normandy Park. Well, we sold a lot of houses in Normandy Park. You didn't, but we did. So, that's the deal. And then I just start showing my office listings. I start showing, or just Keller Williams listings. It doesn't even have to be my own office. In fact, it's usually not. Like if it's in Normandy Park, it probably wouldn't be. So, that's not lying. That's not nothing. That's just a fact. It's just, you just kind of mold what you need to work, right? The other thing too, Shell, is, partner with people. Like if you really are like, look, they're competing, it's a hot market. I'm competing against 3 or 4 teams. Go partner with someone who you feel like will teach you, who's not going to shield you from the process, who will, open their kimono, so to speak, and teach you. And, do that. Everyone has their own path, but you have to fake it till you make it. There are times in real estate when you're new where your sellers know more about their own neighborhood than you do. Let me tell you, they've been real estate for 5 years. They know every single kitchen in that neighborhood and you don't. Okay. It's up here.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And also I'm going to find some excuse to use real stalking now in a sentence every day.
Real stalking, I probably use weekly. Because there's some neighborhoods, there's literally, what market center are you in, Shell?
I signed with North Seattle yesterday.
Oh, congrats. That's why I haven't met you yet. Okay, so Seattle is one of them. Seattle has a lot of real stalker neighborhoods like Laurelhurst. Like there's some neighborhoods there where it's like their part-time job is real stalking. Literally, they know more than most realtors, right? It's intimidating, for sure.
Laurelhurst, Erie Ridge, and Demerara is where I want to be. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm so glad you're at North Seattle. Any other questions I can answer for anyone? All right. Well, thanks for sticking around. That was a long one today, Lena. What do we have next time?
No, but everybody's asking for a part 2 of it.
For the CMAs? Really?
Yeah, and the appraisal stuff. Everybody was super into it.
Well, we can do that. That's easy. We can have Blake super.
So the next one is on May 13th, fundamentals of a listing appointment and the different types of listing appointments.
Okay.
After that is the listing presentation one.
Okay. We can add one in. We can add a Blake session in.
I have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt, but May 13th is the red day.
Oh yeah, we're not doing it on red day. We need to change that.
Very good point. We obviously put this schedule together a couple months ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll change that.
We'll change it and we'll send an email out to you guys.
Yeah. And let's definitely add a Blake session in for sure.
Okay.
I'm sure he'd love to do it. Yeah.
Last question, sorry. How do we access the recorded versions of this again? Is this a link somewhere?
I don't know the answer to that.
I can throw it in the chat box right now. Let me pull it up.
Usually they're on YouTube, but
yeah, I sent you guys all an email too that has it in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll keep sending that though as follow-up, because I know how that goes. You just have to save the link. And how do I pronounce your name? Shazon?
Shazon. Yep, that's correct.
That's great. What's the origin of that? That's a really cool name.
My mom made it up.
I like that.
There was a battle about calling me Jason, and then I was a girl, so they came up with Shazon, just like a French version of Jason. So
cool. I like weird names. I wonder why. Weird. Okay, good. All right, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for sticking around. Bye, Alex. I see you. Bye.